Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining in. I'm Tarusha. I am the co-founder of DAPS. I've been a deep tech entrepreneur for nearly 15 odd years. I also have a podcast called Living on Blockchain. Today I have a very interesting panel in front of me. I have Prachi and Sachin with me. I'll give you a little bit of a background about both of them. This is an exclusive live that we are doing on blockchain and ESG reporting by organizations. It's a very pertinent topic. And regarding Sachin, he is the founder and managing director of JumboBlockchain. He has over 19 years of experience in innovation and digital transformation across various industries. He is a certified blockchain essentials professional and an ISB MBA graduate. His company leverages blockchain technology to create impactful solutions for social impact and sustainability. Sachin has a wealth of experience in thought leadership, financial management, digital strategy, stakeholder management, customer orientation, and team engagement. He has successfully led cross-technology teams to deliver strategic solutions, particularly in supply chain management. Notably, he has also applied for 3 patents in blockchain-related domains and has been significant, as a thought leader and a contributor to the industry through his blogs and podcasts as well. His mission is basically to create value and drive positive change through blockchain innovation and education. We are really happy and honored to have Sachin with us today. So thank you, Sachin, for joining us. And now on to Prachi. Thank you so much, Sachin, for making the time. Regarding Prachi, I'm really delighted to introduce her. She's a senior consultant in ESG measurement, analytics, and performance at a firm in UK. With 5 years of domain experience across several geographies, Prachi brings strategic insights into integrating blockchain for ESG metrics and sustainability practices. Prachi has worked extensively with governments and multinational organizations and businesses across various industries, advising them on sustainability strategies and disclosures, net zero emissions, carbon neutrality, and just climate smart value chains. She's made significant contributions to the sustainable finance space by providing second party opinions on green bonds and other labeled financial instruments. She holds a master's degree in environment management from the Indian Institute of Forest Management, a diploma in environmental policy and law from NLU Delhi, and a bachelor's in civil engineering. In addition to her professional accomplishments, she hosts a YouTube channel that educates on the latest trends of ESG. We are really excited to have you as well for you to be able to share your insights. So thank you so much, Prachi, for joining.
Thank you, Tarusha. That was a very, very generous introduction, I would say. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I'm just really happy to be doing this. Yeah.
Perfect. And it was like very extensive, but I was not expecting. So yeah, the background and other things are there. But yes, I was not expecting that much of big one in length.
I try to be thorough with my research just to set context because, this is such an important topic. And I think even though, I had mentioned this earlier as well, that I've not done much in the, field of ESG myself, but this is something that has always interests me. And I always think it's a very pertinent topic for firms to think about the kind of large scale impact that, you're creating on the environment. And keeping those sustainability goals. And so, I have a bunch of questions, and let me start with Prachi. So, Prachi, what is ESG, and what are the reasons to make it mandatory for organizations across the globe? This is just to set context for different people who are trying to join in, and you are the best person to give that context.
Right. Thank you, Tarusha, firstly, to start with that question, because, you said it very correctly. We're talking about ESG, left, right, and center. We are seeing it news. We are seeing it, all kind of investor conversations everywhere. But there is definitely a kind of misalignment when it comes to what actually ESG is. So I consider ESG as kind of a new umbrella term that used to address everything that comes under sustainability gambit, right? And so we call it either sustainability or ESG. It's not just about environmental conservation. It's not just about carbon emissions, GHG emissions. Though based on what all we hear on media, what all we get to know from the mainstream media, it has now developed this slight of a carbon tunnel vision, as we call it. But ESG, as the word in itself encompasses, it's about social equity. It's also about how the form of governance is going on in a particular corporate businesses, and then environment segment also expands far beyond carbon emissions. So we want to talk about water, we want to talk about waste, energy. So ESG, if I just want to summarize it again, is kind of best practices that a business, a corporate, any economic operations needs to follow to ensure that they have positive impacts on the environment and society, while also limiting and minimizing their negative impacts, such as pollution, such as labor rights, all of those things. And ESG is not a regulatory requirement as of now for most of the companies. A lot of governments across the world has started coming up with their own sets of regulation. In India, we have BRSR, which is one of the reporting requirement. In Europe, we have different sets of requirement. In US, some states have now started bringing up the requirement, but US is kind of falling behind on regulatory requirements. Having said that, the regulatory requirements represents only, I would say, 5% of what all is happening in the ESG domain. Most of it is companies who are aware enough, companies who understand the importance of ESG. They're doing voluntary action. A lot of it is emerging from from the place of being a responsible business, being a leading responsible business in their domain, and some of it is also coming from pressure from investors and customers.
Right. Obviously, because you have to stay ahead of the times and you have to remain relevant, right? And that is one way, because I think the newer generation is much more aware that ESG goals are important. And just to give context, environmental, social, and governance is what we are talking about. When we are giving this context, it's obviously a very deep subject matter. So thank you for summarizing that, Prachi. Sachin, how does tech play an impactful role when it comes to ESG?
Okay, so ESG, according to what I understood, and when we started working in, that was a very key initiative by the governments and the
Hmm.
regulatory organizations, like in India, BRSR, right? That is a report name.
Yes.
That is mandate for all the listed company with the CB, and that reporting has to be done. In India, I'm aware. I'm not aware about the world. But when we talk about ESG reporting and all, if you will look at the set of the data which is going out there, that data sets are not the organization are filling those manually. Basically, there is no way to capture that data automatically. So when it comes to the environment, then there are multiple factors which are there. Like if I am a manufacturing company, then I'm utilizing the natural resources. So what kind of resources we are utilizing, and how? Okay, so I have like say 100 machines. How each machine is utilizing that. So that analysis has to be done, and that data has to be captured automatically. Where technology can be the very different part of that solutions basically. Second is like,
Right.
again, see, if we let me give an example. So it will the example will give you the clarity in what we are doing. So suppose I am using say 40% of the renewable energy, procuring it from somewhere, and then 60% is the from the other natural resources where your environment is getting impacted. So if we want to segregate the data for the different machines, consumptions, and reporting, the data has to be there basically, and which is again missing. And technology can help you out there. The third factor I can say is like nowadays IoT devices are there which can automatically capture the data, and then you can write the artificial intelligence algorithms on the top of that to optimization the consumptions. Like there are machines like running idle, how we can reduce that time. That kind of things um, can be done. Another important aspect around it is that the kind of waste which is coming out from that, or the water waste, or any natural resource, how we can optimize that technology can help. That is into the environment sector, means environmentally. Let's talk about the social responsibility. So social impact is what? When the people work out there, right? The people work, then their health and safety, and how they are like the kind of safety measures they are taking. That data has to be there real time.
Mhm.
Governance model is to report that data, because ESG has three: environment, social, and the governance. So governance is all about how you are reporting that data. If technology is integrated, like IoT with another technology is integrated to capture the data automatically and then report it, this is how the technology will provide the robust governance model out there, and it
Right.
will be visible to all the stakeholders.
Right. So it has to be a very cohesive approach, basically, that firms have to take in order to execute it, because one cannot happen without the other. That is my
Correct.
understanding from whatever, both of you have told us so far. So, Prachi, I would love to understand from you, like if you had to explain perhaps to entrepreneur, what are
Mhm.
the kind of factors one needs to keep
Right.
in mind while trying to adopt ESG initiatives perhaps for their own business? So how would you explain it to them, and perhaps a little simply, so that everybody can take that initiative, be it a small startup or a larger company?
Right, sure. So I think the first point that any business needs to understand is why they want to do ESG. Because as I was mentioning earlier, if it is coming from a place of compliance, there's only so much that they can do and they will do, because they're worried about, the regulatory compliance, and not really worried about what is the right thing to do here. If they're coming from a place that they want to do it because it's the right thing to do, because they want to be a responsible business, there's no limit to what can be done, right? The end goal is to make adjustments into the business operation or in the business model in a way that it reduces the environmental impact, it reduces any kind of societal impact. So that's the end goal, is to have that integration into the business strategy. The ESG is reflected everywhere, it's not just sitting in a silo. The steps to reach there are that where we are playing in, right? So it starts with doing a materiality analysis, which is understanding what are the topics that are important for your company, what are the areas where your company is making an impact, and what are the areas which are outside your control. For example, we talk about climate change, we talk about irregular weather situation, flash floods, wildfire, those kind of things, right? So how they are making an impact on your business continuity. So that is what we call as double materiality. So you have to understand the inside out impact and the outside in impact, and which is then guides your own ESG strategy, right? As a business, what are your priorities, what are your targets? So we start with materiality analysis, that then we go into target setting. The company has to define how much emissions they can reduce, how much water consumption they can reduce, how much energy consumption, all of those things. And then at some places those targets have to be verified. The company starts what we then call reporting, is to collect data and start reporting, which is where blockchain, IoT, artificial intelligence, all of this really comes into the picture, right? Another aspect of this is managing ESG related risks. So there are ESG is a very, very dynamic space, right? There are new concepts, new terminologies coming up every now and then. So we are now using the concept called IROs, which is impacts, risks, and opportunities. So every company has to do an assessment of what ESG or sustainability related impacts, risks, and opportunities are available for their business, and then make their strategies accordingly. So these are some of the key consideration. Another important point that I will mention here, which is the biggest use case of blockchain in sustainability and ESG domain, is that all that a company is doing has to be auditable, has to have an audit trail. Because especially if you're a large company, you could be doing your materiality, you could be doing your maturity, you could be doing everything, right? But if you don't have the evidence, if you don't have the audit trails, it's not going to pass the audit verifications, and that diminishes the credibility of the company to a large extent, right? And reasonable audit adjustments are required as per all reporting compliance requirement as well. Be it BRSR in India, be it CSRD in Europe, be it the upcoming US SEC regulations. So they all require a proper, uh, kind of an audit trail. So that I think is the biggest use case of blockchain.
Okay. So I do have a question for Sachin, but I do have a follow-up question for you, Prachi, which can be a short answer. If you could like recommend any sort of a resource. You mentioned that there is an IRO template of sorts that you guys can use to perhaps understand the kind of how to move forward with this ESG initiative. Is there any resource that you would like to point our listeners towards that they can perhaps utilize?
So I think in terms of resource, I would say stick to the guidelines issued by governments, issued by standards. So that could be GRI standards, our BRSR standards, CSRD standard,
Okay.
ISSB is now a new voluntary standards. So they have tons of guidelines, and would be good resource to start with. But IROs that I was mentioning earlier is not available ready anywhere. It's something that every company has to do their own assessment, because what exactly we're trying to assess is that how the value chain of this specific company, which of course would be different for every company, is creating those IRO touch points across environment
Right.
and social.
Right. So if there is no questionnaire or perhaps something like that they can utilize, they'll have to do some research and perhaps use the
Yeah, I
guidelines
mean,
that are
yeah,
already
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. They, I mean, consultants like me are here to help them, of course. This is
Right.
our bread and butter. We are doing this for all size of clients, from small to large companies. So, consultants can definitely help. But there, unfortunately, there's no
Okay.
kind of ready material.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like take away your bread and butter.
No,
I really
no, I
sincerely like your
understand your
services,
point.
but I'm sure
Yeah.
that like very small companies, they might not be able to afford a consultant.
No,
And
no, of
because
course.
I've been a founder for such a long time, I always think about how to take the DIY approach. So I was hoping that if there is a mechanism to sort of
No, I
help
agree.
those startups.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. So, you mentioned my YouTube channel earlier. That is
Yeah.
kind of my individual effort to kind of democratize ESG knowledge to a certain extent. I'm
Lovely.
trying to put on more videos. I'm trying to make content available for free so everyone can use it, specifically small businesses and even individuals. I also host like free Q&A sessions. So if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm happy to help to the extent possible.
How lovely. You're really giving back to the entire community. So now, Sachin, I would love to know your perspective about how blockchain can help with all of this ESG data. A special shout out to Jumbo Blockchain. I think you guys are specifically you have a specific use case for ESG data as well. So I would love to know both those things on a macro level as well as on a micro level what Jumbo is doing for the ESG initiatives.
Okay, so Tarusha, let me start with an example actually, and that is very maybe Prachi can add it to that. We talk about a lot the organic food and the organic food and the processed food basically, which we are buying all the time. But look at this. I'm talking about the Indian context, so don't take it in other context, but Indian context. You know, only organization knows from where they are sourcing it, right? And that data, if we talk about the entire journey of that particular product up to the end consumer, there are so many steps around it, right? So that entire data is not available with the end consumer. If I say that, I can genuinely can say that it is a organic food, but there is a reporting structure is required around it. So how it can be possible? If I'm buying from an organic farmer, the information should flow from there. The information is specifically related to the land situation. What is the pH? What is the other factors of that particular pH? Why I'm talking about this? Because I spent 20 years in a village. I'm a farmer's son, so that's why we can talk about it, right? But look at this.
Yeah. And this is
If
an example that everybody would understand in this day and age. So
Yeah,
it's a very relevant
exactly.
example. Yeah.
Exactly. So look at this. If I am having a 1 acre land and I'm doing the organic farming, but nearby land they are using the fertilizers, then the automatically with water fertilizer will flow in my organic land, and that is what is the missing point always. So there is a procedure in 5,000 6,000 rupees. You can get the IoT devices. We can check the particular parameters of the your dust and or the earth composition about pH and what kind of other factors are there, and that can be triggered by using the IoT device internet and then the trigger to the blockchain. and then from the source, now you are tracking from the source, now you are reporting from the point of origin. Now you are processing it in your organization. So what kind of conditions around it? If there can be a mechanism, we can put a mechanism out there which will be reporting that data automatically, not by the manual intervention. How is the environmental condition for the employees, how the conditions for the machines, how those machines are, what kind of power or the natural resources those machines are consuming, what is the processing process, basically what is the packaging process. If all these can be integrated together, and then and is the the supply chain to the end consumer, because every organization using a supply chain model called like organizations and dealer distributors, or they export, so they have CNF out there, and then goes to the retailer, and then from retailer I buy. But as an end consumer, do I know? I do not know entire data. That data is getting reported by the ESG, and that is the mandate. How blockchain can help? So blockchain, whenever the IoT devices are triggering the data, we can write a simple smart contract to process the data to bring the transparency into the system. That is to the public chain, because that is the public data basically. There is nothing to hide in that, right? So that, and then again the second, all the consumptions of the natural resources within the organization by the different machines can be done through the self-executable smart contract, and process it and report it. So now it brings the entire the transparency into the system. I will note the name. For us, we have completed one POC recently. So the organization is into a business where they are doing some CSR work, distributing something to the rural part of India, and if those are utilized by those, whatever the utilization is happening, accordingly they get the carbon credit. So they save the climate, means wood and all. So it is a efficient device basically, which consume less wood in comparison to any other traditional device basically. So earlier they were using uh, the surveyed data basically. So one person was going to the different people and capturing for how much time you have used it, and all these details manually, and then it was the manual calculation was doing and then reporting. Now what we have done is we put the IoT device around it. IoT devices are capturing the real time data now whenever the stove or that particular product go above a particular temperature, and for how many hours it has been uh, above that temperature, capture the actual values including the geolocation, and that data is getting triggered to the blockchain, and then from the blockchain it is the real time, or the actual data which is coming in. So now there is no manual intervention required, no assumptions required, no calculation required. It is the actual data which is getting reported, and now it is publicly available because it is on the public blockchain. Now they can take
Right.
whatever they want to take. So these are the very practical example where the technology and the blockchain specifically can bring more and more transparency and the trust at the same time.
Right. Yeah, this is wonderful. I think wherever there is large quantities of data, blockchain, can be a savior. Obviously, that is why there is so much noise these days about the content being generated by AI and how blockchain can be a savior there as well. But that is a whole other discussion altogether. But
Yeah.
thank you, Sachin, for giving those examples. Those are very practical examples. But I do have a follow-up question. Like, how affordable do you feel this can be perhaps for, like, say, just going with a farmer example and people who are involved in agriculture, do you think this is feasible for them at the moment?
Yes, it is quite feasible basically, because the
Okay,
nowadays IoT devices does not cost. So there are certain parameters. The IoT device you
that's
can
true.
build for the 1,000 rupees or 1,500 rupees
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah,
So
that's
it,
true.
it
That's
just
true.
need to do certain measurement only. pH and those are very practical things and have been for a long time. The only thing
Yeah.
you need to add on to that is a basically which can calculate, capture that data, and then trigger that data.
Mm.
Makes sense. Yeah, as you said, this is something that I was already aware that pH level measurement devices they've been there around for a long time. Like you saw them in anybody who perhaps had a green thumb earlier as well, that they wanted to use it even when they look small garden that they had. So just perhaps connecting it now, it's not that hard. And for anybody who's listening in and watching us, this is such a wonderful example, and it can give you such accurate data. So maybe this is like good to look at. And usually people don't even look into this direction, because that is why I asked whether this is feasible, this is too expensive, because they already assume that the cost would be too much. So anybody who's watching, please do pay heed to what Sachin has said, that okay, it's not that expensive to get in, there's not much of an investment requirement, but it will give you the feasible data.
And the best part is not to be fixed out there. You just need to put it for a minute,
Right.
take it out,
Yeah.
and the life is like almost 5 years or more than that also.
Yeah. So then
If you
it's a
you
small
will calculate,
investment, a big
yeah, very small investment basically. And even that investment can be done
yeah.
by the organization also, right? Because that is not the big. They spend so much of
Yeah.
money in advertising. We are organic. Do but just give it to the farmers.
Hmm.
Utilize it as maximum as it possible.
I would like to add a story here, Tarusha.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm, deviating from your agenda, but just a very small example, because I myself have worked on this very closely some years back. So we were trying to increase the premiumization of coffee production in India, and something that sells really well in export market, in European market, is micro lot coffee. Right, so coffee that comes from one small parcel of land, and all the coffee beans are from that same parcel of land exactly. It sells at a very high premium. And on the other hand, in India, we do have a lot of farmers who work on small land parcel. We call them small farmers. They're mostly subsistence farmers. A lot of these could be from tribal communities. A lot of these could be women farmers who of course do not have the large coffee estates, as we call them. And we brought in blockchain in here to help those small farmers sell their coffee at a premium price in export market, just by proving through blockchain that yes, this is a micro lot coffee. So all we had to do is get the blockchain in place and put a QR code on the coffee packaging, and that QR code, when scanned by the customer, in maybe in Norway or in Paris, they would see the whole value chain, right from when it was produced in a small village in Kurg, and then it went to this particular port. These kind of certifications were issued, these were the testing done. They would also see the probably the pictures of the woman farmer who produced that coffee, and that just boosted the premium for the coffee to such a great extent. And the most good thing about is that it translated back into increased income for the farmers, and not just for the managers in between or for the middleman. And that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of technology.
Yeah.
It
So
is. It
so
is.
we are talking here. Just want to add on to the Prachi's. This we are talking about the social also, because ESG has a
Yeah.
social factor also. We
Hmm.
have this Anganwadi. I'm not sure how much you guys are aware about it, but there is a Anganwadi, and Anganwadi workers do a very great
Right.
job in certain things. But they are
Yeah.
not
They
getting
are the ones who are doing everything at the grassroots level. Yeah.
exactly, and they are not. Sometimes they build something which is very high quality, basically, and there is no way to prove it that it has been prepared by some Anganwadi worker,
Yeah.
and where the blockchain can create a bigger value for them, and which can export to the world at a very premium level. And that is one of my future use case, basically, I want to work
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. No, all
Yeah.
handicraft items sell at a premium price, and the most important point is that it can translate back into increased income for the people who are doing it.
Yes. So
Right.
that is one of the
Right.
very, very, that's my dream to build something around it very soon.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful goal to have, and these are such wonderful examples. Very, uh, heartwarming. So I do want to understand again, because these stories are good, but when practically, when somebody is trying to implement it, I would love to know from the both of you, what are the kind of challenges that these organizations face in terms of anything, maybe be it compliance or reporting, uh, that they need to keep in mind, or they might face if they start on this path. So, either of you can take it first and give me your perspective.
I think the process has to be taken care by Prachi, and Prachi can be the right person to start with.
Sure, Sachin. So I think one of the major challenges with implementing blockchain is the challenge that is with implementing anything new, right? We always have to face the resistance to change, right? And blockchain being specifically a tool that decentralizes and democratizes the information, and we are working in the world where everyone wants to have more and more control. Everyone wants to keep as many things central and authoritative as possible, and do not really want to delegate that control. So that kind of resistance to changes, of course, there. Coming to more tangible things, we definitely have the regulatory gap. The technology is moving very fast, the landscape is moving very fast, but the regulatory side of it is still catching up. We don't have a lot of laws and regulations around blockchain, even on cybersecurity, on on that matter. What we do have is laws on data privacy, laws on data regulations, which are kind of in conflict with what we are trying to do with blockchain. So this kind of uncertainty and the gap in regulation is something that fuels that resistance to change further. So yeah, these are, I think, I believe are the most key challenges.
Right. Sachin, what about you? What do you think?
Okay. So, from my perspective, I will talk about very simple things. The first thing, the adoption of the change is very difficult for any organization. Being human, we have a tendency, we are not very, quickly adopter of any change. Now look at the Web 2 and Web 3 products. Basically, there is a big difference between these two. So adoption of those to the by the organization, because they do not have that much of knowledge available with them. We will talk about the blockchain and blockchain, even developers you can find easily who can write the smart contract, but when it comes to the core technology, that knowledge is not there. Even I will not I simply say that I have met so many CIOs, and half of them are clueless. They have only one question to ask: why
That's
blockchain?
true.
When we can do the same
Yeah,
thing
Yeah.
with the centralized system.
yeah,
Why blockchain? That
Yeah.
is a bigger
yeah.
challenge in the adoption.
Right. I think that reminds me of another challenge, Sachin. You were talking about technical experts. I think it also, raises a cost implication, because whenever you're talking about a new technology, and especially specifically when you're talking to people like CFOs or who are working in finance functions, they're
There's a
thinking about
cost of switching, right? Yeah.
yeah, the cost of switching, cost. And then when you're hearing about it like a new fancy technology, it's going to be very difficult to find experts in this technology, because there are already so many, like so few people who know blockchain well, right? So for me
Right.
to hire those people, for me to retain those people, it's going to be added cost.
Yeah, and another part is, see, there is a possibility, Prachi. It's not necessarily that you need to shift the entire system. What you can do is, by
Yeah.
using the blockchain and integrate it to the existing system, and there is a very good possibility for that. That's one thing. Second, the regulations and other challenges which we were talking about. See, nowadays the ZKP, that zero knowledge proof, basically, which is there, your data is completely safe, not visible even on the public blockchain, because it goes in that kind of encryption, right? So that is because people are not aware about all these things. They do not have that in-depth knowledge of the technology, and that is where the challenge comes into the adoption. We as an organization, our focus is majorly into the enterprise use cases only. So we have to work hard to make them understand, and we need to find out the way or the solution, basically, so that they should not stuck in the changes, like the kind of change. See, earlier Web 2 was the login base, now it is a wallet base. So we need to build a mechanism that they should have that feel that it is not changing, but you change everything at the back end, right? Let
I
me
think
give.
I agree with you, Sachin. Yeah, like I really genuinely believe, like I've spoken to so many founders who do enterprise selling for around Web3, and most of them say the same thing, that enterprises, when you tell them blockchain, they feel scared. But when you give them a solution and you don't really mention that blockchain is a part of it, then later somehow they realize that okay, blockchain is also an integral part of that particular solution, then they're fine with it. But initially when you say that, it scares them off, because again, there is certain mental hang-ups that people have around switching. That there'll be cost, there'll be problems in terms of talent or skill retention that they might face, and they are somehow not able to look past that.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to give that feel that you are not changing. Your front end, see what you feel, right? If you see the
Right.
front
Yeah.
end as it is, you don't
Yeah.
care
Hmm.
about what is there behind the scene.
Right.
There is a
Yeah.
AWS server or a blockchain which is having a smart contract to execute your data. You're not bothered about
Yeah.
it, right?
True.
So
Yeah.
these are the things. These are the the steps basically as an organization or anybody has to take when they go to any organization. Don't scare them. Just give a simple solution around it, and that's easily
Yeah.
possible, right? The second challenge
Yeah.
is when it's a regulatory aspect. I'm talking about most of the country are not very friendly with the crypto, and crypto become the basic part if it is not a private chain. So if it is a public chain, then crypto every transaction you have to done into the crypto basically. But if you sell it blockchain software as a service, then organization don't need to do anything. They are not dealing with the crypto at all. You as an organization are managing their wallet and just keeping their inventory to do the transactions. It's a very simple way. So we need to think simply why we are getting into a complication. We do not need to. But yes, these are the things, and organization will be happily adopted because in their balance sheet they don't need to show that they have transacted in crypto. Basically, they are paying in the fiat,
Right.
and they are adopting the technology, growing as well, and over a period of time, they will understand by the time regulatory will be in. So we need to change that habit, but in a very slow and very smart way, basically. So they should not have that feel, oh, I need to do it. You just go to like anyone, tell blockchain, they will not understand. Just tell
Hmm.
crypto, oh, yeah, we know. Different. And crypto is just a use case on technology.
And
The technology
absolutely.
is
Yeah.
very wrong.
Right. Yeah. I think people have a tendency to, think one and the other is the same, which is not the case. There might be, as you said, it's a use case, and the technology itself can be used in different sectors in different ways. And yeah, enterprises do tend to scare easy. So what Sachin said, maybe some of our viewers who are building for enterprise can take your suggestion and sell it as a service, and at the back end take care of things without really expecting bigger changes in perception from the enterprise itself, because that's going to take some time. That perception is going to take some time to change, to build. And I think the onus is on on builders like us, who are building in this space actively in Web3, to keep talking about how this technology can be utilized, perhaps, and somewhere I think it'll get stuck with people. So now I would love to talk a little about compliance aspect. Sachin, you've kind of already touched upon it. Prachi, what are your thoughts on the compliance aspect when it comes to organizations following these ESG goals? Are there any kind of requirements, prerequisites, like informing the stakeholders when an organization starts the journey, or any kind of other compliance that they should keep in mind?
Yeah. Sure. So I think on ESG front, there are lot of new regulations that are coming into the picture now. In India, we have already talked about BRSR, which mandates like top 1,000 listed companies to report their ESG performance using a certain template, using a certain standard, and it's same pretty much same across the world. In Europe, we have like different templates. In UK, we have different templates. In US, Canada, there are different templates. But what it kind of adds or kind of muddies the water is that because there are these different standards and different requirements from different governments, for global companies, it becomes very hectic to kind of keep track of, what data is to be reported where, what are voluntary, what are regulatory, and, companies are more stuck and, just kind of trapped into this compliance game of what data needs to be reported and what data needs to be reported as per what standard in what country, rather than actually making changes in their business operation, like actually trying to reduce their emissions. So that's kind of one of the biggest challenge in terms of compliance I see. In terms of stakeholders, companies, as per CSRD, as per BRSR, even as per GRI, companies who are doing their sustainability reporting are required to reach out to their internal as well as external stakeholders, to collect input on materiality, to understand what topics, because when we're talking about ESG, there are multiple topics under them, right? There would be over 25, 30, even 50 topics, right? When we are drafting the list of IROs, it can go beyond 500. And certainly all 500 IROs are not priority for every company, right? So materiality assessment helps the company understand, out of these 500, these 50 are the ones who are at priority for me, and for the next reporting cycle I'm going to be focusing on these 50 IROs. So on that, external stakeholder engagement is recommended, but it's not mandatory.
All right. Okay. So it is recommended, but it's not mandatory to perhaps, inform the stakeholders when you are moving in this direction. So
Yeah.
again, for all the builders out there, keep this in mind. Now, to the both of you, I would love to understand on a macro level, how do you feel blockchain is going to perhaps alter the way CSR happens in corporates? And again, let's start from you, Sachin. What is your perspective there, and then we can move to Prachi.
Let's talk again. I always talk about the examples, right? I am an
Hmm.
organization doing a CSR. I have that responsibility with me. We allocate the fund, but where is the transparency of utilization of those funds? How the
Right.
distribution has happened? There is no transparency in the system right now, right?
Right, right.
It is not available for the public. So you are going to do some good work for the public. You allocated the fund for the public. You are answerable to your stakeholders that how that fund has been utilized. The larger organizations are utilizing the NGOs to do those activities for them, for the social. But what is happening out there is not traceable at all right now. And it's very simple example, right? That how much money NGO is using for that particular cause, for that they have taken the money from the organization, and how much money they are just diverting it.
Right.
That up to that traceability, that is not available right now, and a simple solution by using the blockchain as technology can make it visible publicly.
Yeah.
And that
That's a
is
very
the
good
most.
example. I know of bigger MNCs that have all of these folks who are guarding the CSR fund. They take a little bit, on the side. And I know these companies, and these are like big MNCs. And I was very surprised. And I know this because I have a relative who runs an NGO, and they were applying, and they did not know that there is a cartel around these CSR. And they were so surprised that, for even CSR, the person who is in charge for giving it, they're saying that okay, we'll take like 1% if there is a success fee associated, which is very strange. I was very surprised myself, but I guess it's such a relevant example, and it happens every day.
Yeah. So that transparency blockchain can bring in, the self-executable smart contract verifiable. Once you have done that activity verified by the end consumer where you have done that activity, if there are say 1,000 people participate, they can easily make sure that it is done from there, and they can verify, and then they can report that, which can directly go to the organization. So when this kind of transparency we can bring into the system by utilizing the simple technology, I say it's very simple technology basically, according to me, just a database using a smart contract to execute the transaction. That's it. So when there is a possibility for that and we are not utilizing it, is not a good idea. So in CSR, yes, this is one of the best example I can think and I can give.
Yeah. No, as I said, it's a very relevant example, and you kind of one tends to. I think this is I'm perhaps guilty of that. I love giving examples as well, but I at times complicate. Think go to the complicated solution, because that's where my brain goes. But this is such a simple example, and this is so relevant. So thank you for sharing that. Prachi, do you have like perhaps an example as well, or that you would like to mention here?
Yeah, sure. So, firstly, I think I'll resonate with everything that Sachin has said about, about CSR being a value case. In addition,
Hmm.
I think what I'll say is that for every CSR project and for any social impact project, even outside CSR, the key is monitoring and evaluation, right? To kind of have those baseline, midline, endline, surveys to identify that whatever money has been spent, has it actually converted into an impact, right? So, um, and and it's a very hectic activity. It goes very deep to identify that what change has been made. For example, if we talk about, say, sanitation, right? The number of, say, toilets built in a village is not the impact outcome, right? The impact outcome would be what was the behavior change. The impact outcome would be how the public health in the village has improved, right? And that's the biggest missing link when we talk about CSR or any social impact project, right? That we stop at how many toilets built, as the output, right? And so blockchain can really help in that monitoring and evaluation, in that impact assessment, to identify, to manage all this data, to create that immutable blocks, so that there's no there's of course transparency, there's no corruption of the data. And at the end, if, say, $100 million have gone down the drain, it has not created any impact, it is difficult to digest, but at least we have the right information, and we know that there was something wrong with this model. We can probably divert our funds in a different manner the next time. People don't really want to see that. People want to see that, whatever we have spent has done miracles, and they don't really want to see what impact was kind of actually created. So impact allocation, impact assessment, and monitoring and evaluation, and then of course then building the evidences, creating the audit trails, all of this.
Right. Yeah. I think what you said, I think from all of this, like whatever you said, I totally concur. But the one thing that kind of stood out is how the way it is being measured. That is only, incorrect, perhaps. They are looking at what they wanted to build, but they are not looking at the behavior change that it brought about, which is the most pertinent thing there. So that's a very good way of putting it. I do have a follow-up question here because, again, we are talking about a ton of data and we are talking about blockchain and ESG. Is there any other technology you feel at the moment? Because, there is a lot of talk around AI, ML,
Yeah.
and there are different things that keep coming up every day. Do you think ESG can be supported by perhaps utilizing some other tech as well apart from blockchain?
No, definitely. I mean, see, Sachin has already talked about IoT, has already talked about AI, and I will just take an
Yeah.
example, a use case example for sustainability, say sustainable value chain or supply chain, right? Because doing supplier assessment, doing supplier audits every year, every quarter, ensuring that all laws and regulations are being followed at your tier one suppliers, tier two suppliers, it's very hectic, right? And technologies can make those things very easy. We can have IoT collect all the real time data. We have emission sensors, we have water quality sensors, which can be connected to IoT and can give us real time data. No need for manual checking how much energy was consumed, what was the electricity bill. There's no need to do any manual correction, so there's no question of data gaps and data availability there. So we have IoT come in there, then we can store all of that immutable data in blockchain, so everything is secure. There's no kind of corruption going on with the data. And then we have AI helping us assess the risk with all of the data that we have collected, and also helping us predict the future risk, right? Which is what is the end goal of doing all of this ESG, all of this narrative, is to assess future risk and to to start addressing the future risk as soon as possible. So it helps business continuity. So it helps, overall sustainable development. So we do have AI. Another really interesting piece of technology that I think goes really well with supply chain and blockchain is digital twins, right? So managing those tier 2, tier 3 level of supplies, managing, optimizing your, logistic routes, all of them, doing that on Excels, doing that on softwares. It is getting out of hands now. So I think digital twins really help, in optimizing that, those routes, ensuring that your emissions are minimum, ensuring, uh, like all kinds of environmental and social benefits out of it.
Right. I think that's a very good example. Like everybody thinks of IoT and AI, but just for our people who are watching in, I was about to say listeners because I'm used to the podcast, but people who are watching in, a digital twin is a virtual model of a physical object. So it can be used for anything, for processes, for the object's life cycle. Users can get perhaps real time data. There are sensors on the objects that simulate the behavior, monitor the process. So that I think would give you a little bit of context as to what Prachi just said. So thank you so much again for giving that example. I'm learning a lot, by the way, in this particular, session that I'm taking. I'm enjoying this tremendously because I'm learning so many new things. So yeah, now Sachin, I would, because you give examples, how would you give an example or to perhaps an entrepreneur as to how to measure ROI when they are doing ESG measurement and they are trying to do ESG reporting? What will be a good way?
So okay, so there are multiple ways to do that. So
Hmm.
if I'm doing a ESG project by using any technology or even include the blockchain, so what is your setup cost basically to put it in that, and what are the real outcome, how effective it has worked, how your the efficiency has come into your operational activities and the operational cost, how your training cost has been reduced because of that. You can identify these factors, quantify those, and then you can calculate the simple ROI. So like so the end of the day, it is the financial goal basically. And then once you achieve your financial gain and goals basically by using that investment, then that is something where you can calculate your return on the investment. So simply I usually
Right.
say is like $1 is spent, either it's reducing your cost by $2 or $3, or it increase your revenue by $2 or $3 or $5
Right.
basically. That is the
Yeah.
simple mathematical calculation when it comes to the ROI calculation.
Hmm.
I think for
Right.
ROI on adopting ESG practices, I'll also add that doing proper ESG really helps you understand the risks for your business, and the biggest ROI is to identify risks as early as possible, right? And it would, I mean, there
Yeah.
might not be a direct correlation that identifying this risk will help you save this much cost, but it eventually will.
And
Right. Yeah.
that's the process basically who can tell. And the
Yeah.
process, yes,
I
that is
think
something intangible
the process
value.
will. It is. It is. That is exactly what I was about to say. That that is not something that you can really measure. The
Yeah.
fact that you're able to identify these risks and for your business, and then you're able to perhaps proactively work towards resolving them or mitigating it in some way. That itself is very, very invaluable. So this has to be somewhat. It should become. It shouldn't be an exception. It should be the norm. That you like every corporate entity has like a huge accounting team and a compliance team. There should be a team around ESG goals as well, just to make sure that you're on the right side of the track for and have living up to your perhaps long term vision. So I would love to understand from the both of you again how crucial is the collaboration between technology providers and ESG consultants to ensure that these Web3 based ESG initiatives succeed. We understand that these two are perhaps in different silos altogether, the way they function and they work. So how do you make it work? One, and how important do you feel it is? And both of you are on both sides of the spectrum. So I'd like to understand from the both of you, how important do you think that is?
I'll let Sachin answer first.
Okay.
Please
So
go ahead.
for me, it is quite simple. So like Prachi is from the process side. I am from the technical side. Prachi can identify the problem areas where the technology is required to capture the data to make it more transparent. And we, as a technology provider, can build a solution and the architecture around it, that how fast it can be, how effective it can be, and how it is going to create value over a period of time. So this is how the process consultant provides the flow of the process and
Mhm.
identify the area where technology is really needed. And
Mhm.
we, as a technology person, identify the architecture and the most optimized solution for that particular problem. So this is how these two things work in a in a sync way, basically, where completely syncing is required, where the identification of the problems and then the provide a very optimized architecture around it. That is, I see that to work with the ESG consultant and as a technology company. What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, the loop has to complete only that way, right?
Yes.
It's otherwise half a circle.
Yes.
But
No.
yeah, so, Prachi, please go ahead.
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Tarusha, and definitely, Sachin. All that you mentioned really resonated. I think the key for both these to work together is firstly to understand what are the data requirements, right? I mean, the blockchain consultant or the blockchain vendor is really there to help us put all the technology in place, implement the technology, but maybe a ESG consultant can there help understand what are the data KPIs that needs to be captured, what all of this is really critical, what out of all of this is maybe noise, what is currently the gaps, what is something that we are not capturing at the moment that we needs to capture, right? And then refer back to the compliance requirements around ESG, refer back to what are the strategies and targets for this particular company, and bring all the requirements, bring to together with the blockchain consultant. The other thing, I've talked about this before, but the other thing is to do a risk assessment and to do a risk mitigation together,
Right.
because that's the end goal. That's where both the parties are working towards. So both can bring their own strengths and can help the company identify their risks well in advance, both ESG related financial risks, technological risks, and help put mitigation measures in place.
Right. Yeah. So I think, like you said, this is something that what I said, like it'll just be half a circle if we are just working in silos, and it has to be for the circle to complete and for the process to actually be effective. Both sides have to really work together and make sure that you're able to achieve perhaps the ESG initiatives that you have started off. So now to you, Sachin, again, because you are so fond of giving examples, we would love to get a few more examples from you. How can blockchain help meet the ESG goals apart from data reporting? Like, would you have some other examples to give so that our viewers can have a better idea?
So I think I already covered that particular part, but let me talk about it again. One of the example I have given for the carbon credit and capturing the
Right.
real time data. That is one thing. Second example I
Hmm.
have given in the initial, that if a organization is using 40% renewable power, 60% the power which is generated from the natural resources, that is also
Hmm.
again traceable, basically, by using that, doing the smart contract automatic adjust note adjustment automatically whenever the using, it will be capturing the uh, real time data. Then the IoT devices will be capturing the consumption and or the efficiency of a particular machine or particular equipment, which can be optimized over a period of time. One of the example I would love to give this time is, when you put blockchain based solutions to track and trace, and then when you reach at the last level, let me give an example of pharma industry,
Right.
and you would love it. The pharma industry, if a medicine is expired, it's a waste. Company has to take it back and then just scrap it. If you have the real time data reporting at the local level, and at the level where where the medical stores are there, and then you see that in that particular area there is a particular product which is fast moving at a particular medical store and less fast moving at the another store, you can switch it faster so that it can be consumed and you can save money.
Right.
It's, these,
That's a
these,
wonderful
these are,
example.
yeah, these are a simple practical example which we see every day, but we ignore it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is
No,
that
that's
is that is
beautiful.
what can be done, and again, it will come under ESG only because you are
Right.
utilizing the natural resources to produce that, and then you are just scrapping it later on.
Yeah, you're reducing waste, right? So, it
Yeah.
does add on to the same thing. Yeah.
So that's very practical example which we see every single day in front of our eyes. But yes, but this is something which is possible by using the technology, by using the
That we have now.
micro level monitoring of the products, and it can create a
Yeah.
lot more value.
I think our viewers are going to go back with a lot of ideas of
Yeah.
solutions that you might want to create. And I would encourage them to get in touch with you, Sachin, so that we can use your infrastructure and build on those ideas, perhaps, because, the examples that you've given, as I said, they're very, very relevant. And I love these kind of conversations where, the examples are so practical that just say everybody gets it. So, this is this kind of stuff that people will get.
Yeah.
So, we are running a little ahead of what time we are allocated. But I do have one, perhaps two more questions for you, both of you. So, Prachi, I would love to get your perspective around any other use case. Like, do you see any other use case in the sustainability domain for blockchain apart from ESG data reporting? Like the same question that I had asked Sachin, but do you see
Yeah.
another, example or any kind of a use case?
Right. I think Sachin has really covered it really, well in his answer. He has already talked about carbon credits. He has already talked about energy trading. So those are, I also see as some of the most leading use cases. I've already talked
Yeah,
about supplier audit, so that is another segment that blockchain can really help, and basically
right.
just want to echo about audits once again, because even with carbon credits, even with energy trades, the key is verification, verifying. Uh, Companies can say, a cooperating in USA is saying that I have bought carbon credits from this particular afforestation project in Northeast India, right? But nobody knows if that reforestation project actually took place, how many trees were planted, how many trees are surviving, how much what ton of carbon they have actually absorbed, how many trees have been felled down for maybe like a highway construction, right? So that verification is the biggest parameter when it comes to carbon trade, a trade of carbon credits, and blockchain can solve it very easily, very smoothly. We just need better buy-in from all the stakeholders. We need better policies. We need more regulatory oversight, on the whole market. But blockchain is here to stay and to definitely help with credits, tradings, verifications, audits, all these.
100%. I think I completely concur with the both of you. If you're going to be building for the long term game, and if you're going to be building in any sector, you really need to think about these ESG initiatives, these goals, and think about how this is going to. You're building for the future, right? Nobody is building for unless you're in the short term game and you're scamming
Yeah.
somebody. Everybody is being building for the long term. And if you're going to do that, then you'll be doing yourself disservice if you do not keep this in mind. If you'll be doing yourself disservice if you do not embrace newer technologies which will make your processes more efficient. I think this is my learning from this particular conversation that we've had today. Now, before we wrap this up, I want parting thoughts from the both of you around how, again, keeping blockchain and ESG in mind, and how this is going to play out in the future, perhaps, and then we can wrap this up. So, Sachin, would you like to go first?
Okay, so I will give the simple example. Every
Yeah.
government in every country is utilizing. They have their own target of the ESG, right? And one of them is
Right.
the social. and they run so many social activities like subsidy distribution, insurance distribution, healthcare data, which is missing. Over a period of time, government will start adopting. Like I see a lot more initiative from the Indian government and the state government towards that direction to make this entire process more and more transparent, so that their social responsibility can be fulfilled in a very transparent way. That is what I see in future, and that's why we are sitting in India. Usually, nobody is building based out of India, and I'm sitting in the heart of this country in Delhi.
Right. Yeah. Wonderful. So
Great.
I think you very put it very well. I think that's a lovely way to end this particular panel. But Prachi, not without you telling us what are your thoughts on how this kind of plays
I
out
would
in the future.
I would just say two words, I think. So both ESG and blockchain are aiming for the same future. The end goal for both the concepts is exactly same, which is transparency and trust. Right. So the earlier we start working together, the better it will be for everyone.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely. I think I totally concur with what you guys have said. I truly do believe that uh, with the rise of, what you had said earlier, Prachi, that, there is a rise of people and sections of the society that don't want to let go of power. There is like, centralization of authority. And this is playing out everywhere, not just in any one country. It's playing out everywhere. I
Yeah.
think that itself is the reason why people should be looking at decentralized technologies a lot more. And if you're going to be playing with the kind of heat that we have seen this year everywhere, all over the globe, and the kind of, erratic weather that we are seeing, if organizations that are working on solutions, they think that they can just work in a silo without thinking about the long-term impact they are creating, or the long-term impact that perhaps they should be creating in terms of the ESG goals that their company should embody, then we are really, really creating a horrible world for our own future, for our perhaps for our families' futures, and we need to be more, very, very more mindful. So, with that, and on that note, I'd like to perhaps end this panel. Thank you so much, the both of you, for joining in. This has been a very enlightening conversation, and I'm sure this was a really, really good one for everybody who's joined in to watch as well. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tarisha,
Thank you,
Tarusha,
Tarusha.
and thank you everyone. Thank you, Prachi, for your time. I really let's connect sometime. We can create a better world together.
Of course, of course.
Absolutely. Let's create a better world together.
Thank you everyone for
Bye.
joining.
Bye.